So one of the things about owning an electric vehicle and explaining electric vehicles to others is actually having something to relate to. And that is where this comes in. So I was at work the other day and we're having some more charge points installed in our car park, and I was explaining this to people in the team and I said, we're having some new charge points installed. The cost will be 22p per kilowatt hour. And there was just silence. It meant nothing to anyone in the audience. What does 22 kilowatts even mean? Is that good value? Is that bad value? How many miles do I get for the kilowatt? Everyone in the audience owned a petrol or a diesel car. They have no concept, and why should they? So it's important when talking about electric cars, and especially if you're thinking about buying an electric car, understanding how the consumption of an electric car and the metrics around the consumption of electricity for an electric car relates back to the consumption of petrol or diesel. And so it's quite convenient to have something that, even if you've never used one, you'll know what this is and you can relate it to the consumption of petrol, and I can tell you what this would equate to in terms of a battery in an electric car. So let's give that a go. So if you don't know what one of these is, you've probably been living in a hole. Even if you've never ever used one of these, you've probably seen either green ones or black ones in petrol stations. This is just in the UK. I don't know what these look like anywhere else in the world. I'm sure they're similar. It's a container. It's designed to put 1 gallon, that's a European gallon, or 5 litres of petrol or diesel. This is a petrol one because it's green. The diesel ones are black, but they all hold 5 litres or a gallon of petrol or diesel, and they're designed if you run out of fuel, you can walk to the nearest garage, you can pick one of these up, fill it up, and get back to your car, and away you go again. So 5 litres, 1 gallon. So we all know roughly when we drive our petrol or diesel cars what we get to the gallon. You know, it's something we look at when we buy a petrol or diesel car. You know, it does 55 miles to the gallon, it does 60 miles to the gallon. I've had a car that did 5 miles to the gallon if you really pushed it. But I've had cars that have done 50, 60 miles to the gallon, well, they claim to anyway. And you know, some of them got near to that on long runs. But what does that mean when it comes to actually then going to electricity? So this is a really handy size for comparisons, and I will say that these comparisons are not, you know, I'm going to round up some numbers here because I don't want to get into kind of like, oh, you know, it's 0.0, 0.1 or whatever. I don't want to get into kind of like, I just want something that you can really easily imagine in your mind. So I've got 2 electric cars. I have a 40 kilowatt Nissan Leaf and I have a 52 kilowatt Renault Zoe. Now that's a really handy size to compare to this, because it turns out that diesel and petrol are around 10 times more dense in terms of their energy storage than a battery. So a 52 kilowatt, and we're going to round it down to 50 to make this work. So the Renault Zoe, round it down to 50 kilowatts. That is the equivalent of 5 litres of petrol or diesel. This, what I'm holding in my hand, if we could get batteries to be as energy dense as fuel, this would be all the battery we'd need. Of course, we haven't yet got there. So the battery in the Renault Zoe is about 10 times the size of that container. But fortunately, electric motors are incredibly efficient, about 80% efficient, and again, round numbers. And petrol or diesel, about 20, maybe a little bit more if you're being generous. So the make up for the efficiency means that you don't need as much battery. So just to put that into perspective, the Golf that we used to have, which was a diesel, had a 55 litre tank, which meant that if that was a battery, that would be 550 kilowatt hours of battery storage. Now, the Renault Zoe has 52 kilowatt hours in its storage. So of that, you get about 205 miles of range. And that's pretty good. So what we're saying then is that if my old petrol or diesel car had a 5 litre tank here, to compete in terms of range, it would have to do about 205 miles per gallon. So, you know, that is the kind of order of magnitude difference that a petrol or diesel car is compared to a electric car. And I think that's really important to understand because, you know, we think of petrol and diesel cars having much longer ranges because we can just fill them full of a liquid, which is an incredibly energy dense liquid. But ultimately, we're measuring it as a volume, not as it's the energy in it. So, you know, you don't go down to the petrol station and fill up with 550 kilowatts of diesel. You just go down and you put 55 litres in and it charges you per litre. It doesn't charge you per kilowatt. So, you know, because it's easy, it's a liquid, so we can pour it in. When we go and plug in an electric vehicle, of course, we're not pouring a liquid in, we're putting energy back into the battery. We're moving some electrons around. And so we are charged for the energy that we are putting into the battery. And so, you know, we are charged per kilowatt that we are putting into the battery, and the battery will hold a certain amount of kilowatt hours of storage. So, you know, it's a slightly different thing to understand, but in a way, you can relate it back to the petrol and diesel world, as long as when you're looking at that petrol and diesel world, you're understanding what the differences are. And so the next bit is the kind of heavy maths bit, and so I don't normally script these videos because, you know, it's not really something I want to get into doing. These things take long enough, but I've written some stuff down here just to kind of keep it on the level. So let's look at how much it would cost to fill up my electric car. And this is the thing, it's going to cost different things depending on where you fill this car up. So if I filled my car up with 52 kilowatt hours of electricity at home during the day, paying around 16p per kilowatt hour, that's your kind of average sort of cost, sort of certainly around this area anyway, it cost me £8.32. So that's £8.32 to get me 205 miles of range. Fair enough. If I use Octopus Go, referral in the description below, then they've got a special tariff which overnight you can charge the car for 4 hours, and it will go down to 5p a kilowatt hour, which is a huge difference. So then it will cost me £2.60 to fill up my car to 52 kilowatts. It's never empty, but you know, if it was, it would cost me £2.60 to fill that car up. So you know, a big difference. If I was on the motorway, if I was going down the motorway, you know, it's going to cost more money because I'm going to use a rapid charger, and they've spent a fortune putting these rapid chargers in. They haven't put enough in by any means. You know, petrol and diesel cars have got a bit of a head start on the infrastructure, but you know, it's going to cost me £15-16 to fill that car up and get 205 miles of range. And you know, those rapid chargers are getting pretty good these days. The Zoe can charge at 50 kilowatts, so you know, you'll get an 80% charge in, you know, half hour or so. So that's it. I thought I'd just put this video together because I don't think everyone is aware how the fuel and electric, you know, worlds can be compared, because we've basically been filling up our cars with energy, but we've been charged by volume. And so actually being able to say, well, how much energy is in petrol and how does that compare to batteries is a really important thing, because going forwards we are going to be charged for energy. And so, you know, if you think about when you're filling your car up, you put 50 litres in, that's 500 kilowatts you've just put into that car. Incredible that petrol and diesel can store that much energy. Not so incredible the amount of actual miles you get out of it, because an electric motor will go a very long way on not a lot. And that's why you can have the same amount of capacity that's in here make you go such a long way in an electric car. It's probably also one of those things which is why electric cars, if you actually floor it massively, the electrons disappear quite quickly. Imagine what you'd do if you floored your car and you only had this as your fuel tank. It's the same kind of deal. But I digress. Anyway, I hope that was useful, and we'll see you in the next one. And if you're interested in a cheap tariff for your electric vehicle, then the Octopus Energy referral code will be in the description below. So there we go, a quick one for you on that. And I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and share if you think friends might be interested in the comparison. And we'll see you in the next one.